All right, welcome to Hoopstracker. Jerry Howard, your host. We have a special guest today. We have Alyssa No from Boco Preps at the Daily Camera. Alyssa, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jerry.
Oh, this is awesome. I'm so pumped that we have basketball. And, I know you cover, Boulder County, Broomfield County, but you've got some of those edge schools like Mead and Frederick. Really excited to talk because all of those schools had big games this week. And let's first talk about the boys' side. Um, Frederick hosted, or not Frederick, but Thompson Valley, Frederick, and Windsor, all the northern top 5A schools, hosted the top southern 5A schools and a round robin tournament. So I believe Wednesday or Thursday, they were up at Thompson Valley. The next day, they were at Frederick. And then the last day, they were at Windsor. Talk a little bit about what you saw, because I know, Frederick played really well the first night against Air Academy. The second night, they met up with the state champions, Mesa Ridge, but talk a little bit about those games.
Yeah, so the beginning of the game, Frederick and Mesa Ridge held each other pretty well. Frederick was out without their big guy, Jovan Aldana. He's actually out for the season with a torn ACL, which really sucks for them because I mean he was averaging 16 points a game and something like 8 rebounds a game, I think. And you know, after a while, they just couldn't match the physicality of Mesa Ridge. They just especially let me see, I'm trying to put my notes, sorry. Especially Bryce Reel, he had 20 points. Most of them were in the paint. I mean, they were being out rebounded, they were being blocked left and right, steals, everything. They just couldn't keep up. But whenever Frederick would get really behind, they'd go on a really big run to make it close again. I think they
Hmm.
came within 5 or 6 points in the last few minutes of the game after being down almost 20.
Hmm.
And Dante Lechuga for Frederick was really impressive all over the floor. I think he had 16 points for Frederick. And I feel like with Jovan, that would have been a really, really, really good game. But
Hmm.
because he wasn't there, it kind of hurt them. And they're trying to figure out how to play without their big guy.
One of the things that really impressed me about Frederick is their guards can shoot threes from anywhere on the floor, and they could drive the paint. And even with the athleticism of Mesa Ridge and stuff, they could still get some points up. But as you pointed out, Mesa Ridge is not only physical, but they're extremely athletic. Almost all those guys can jump and play above the rim, and that's one of the things that impressed me. I saw them a lot this summer, and they were trying to adjust because they graduated two key seniors, and them coming back this year, and with them going, Mesa Ridge went really deep into the football playoffs. So the coach really hasn't had a lot of time with these guys to get them on the same page. But I can tell you when they played Windsor the night before, man, Windsor was taking it to them, and then they went on a 16-0 run to win the game and pull it out at the end. But it was just amazing to watch how physical and athletic they are. Talk a little bit about Mead, because Mead earlier in the week had a huge game and beat Windsor, who played in the state championship last year. Did you get a chance to go to that game?
I did not actually, and I did not look them up either because I focused more on the girls for this.
No, I was really impressed with Matt Angelo, and this Mead team is for real. I mean, they really played hard, and they came out and kind of punched Windsor in the mouth. They were ready for Windsor, and I know Windsor is one of the top teams to repeat this year with Madden Smiley, John Backhouse, two key returners, two key scorers, and me just came out, and I talked with some of the Windsor parents, and they just said they just came out flat. They didn't look like they were ready to play, and then when they lost again, they lost their second game in the week to Mead. So when they played on Saturday, they were ready. They were ready to go. Um, but yeah, Mead phenomenal team. Coach Darren Reese has done a great job with his team, and looking forward to seeing them this year. Now, let's swing back. Let's talk a little bit peak to peak. Peak to peak girls and boys went up to the Glenwood Springs tourney. Peak to Peak still undefeated, and so they ran the table. They won the tourney this weekend. Any thoughts on Peak to Peak? Have you had a chance to talk? I know you guys are doing your player reviews and your team reviews. Have you had a chance to talk with Coach Evan on your team?
We have not yet, but we were looking at they're going to be playing Holy Family later this week, and I think that's going to be a great matchup because I mean Pete Vallejo for Holy Family is a hell of a coach. I mean it doesn't matter who he has on the floor, that team's always in the conversation. And I you've really seen um that like those peak to peak kind of grow over the last few years and continue to get better. Right now, they have five guys averaging over 7.5 points per game, and Dane Hurt has 12. So, I
Mhm.
mean, they have a lot of firepower, and pretty much anybody can shoot the ball.
Well, it's going to be amazing to watch because, as you said, Pete Vallejo, last year's team graduated quite a few seniors and they're rebuilding. But man, they come out, they play tough. And they picked up, Pete Vallejo picked up a new assistant on his staff. It was last year's state championship coach, Enoch Miller from Roosevelt on the girls' side. So he's helping Pete out this year on the boys' side. So it's very interesting how that staff and how those teams are going to play. And I don't know if you remember or not, but Peak to Peak and Holy Family used to be in the same conference. And so there used to be a big rivalry with them. And when they switched conferences, when Peak or Holy Family moved out of the Metro League and moved into a different league, they stopped playing each other. But I have a funny feeling Saturday morning is going to be a little bit of a it's going to be a barn buster at Peak to Peak. So that's going to be a great game.
I mean, and the girls are playing right then too. So I'm hoping to
Mhm.
get out there to that. Do you want to switch to the girls real quick? Talk to that
Yeah,
game.
let's switch. Yeah, let's switch to the girls because I think switching to the girls' side, you have Alex Eschmeyer at Peak to Peak. Talk about this Peak to Peak team because they graduated two key players from last year, but Alex has some young players. So talk a little bit about that Peak to Peak team.
Yeah, so I think Alex is really starting to get into that leadership role. She's been the top player for them for the past 3 years, I believe.
Mhm.
And right now she's averaging 23.4 points per game and 13.4 rebounds per game. She's pretty tall. I can't remember off the top of my head, but definitely over 6 feet. And she has Nev Gustafson helping her this year with 10.4 points per game. They have a 5-0 record right now with only one loss to Delta. So, and she just surpassed 1,500 points in their tournament over the weekend. So,
That's huge for Alex. I think, what's interesting is Alex is, I think, the all-time leading scorer at Peak to Peak. She surpassed the previous person, I think, last year. But what's interesting is Tuesday night they play University, and University out of Greeley is one of the top four teams in the Hoops Tracker poll, and they have a big post player that I think will give Alex, I don't say some trouble, but it will definitely give her, she's going to have to work in the paint. And then they also have Janae Kravig, who is one of the top point guards in the state. Addison Harding is that post player, and she's committed to go to Western State next year. So it'll be interesting that this is going to be an interesting matchup because this is an early preseason top five matchup.
yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah. And then yeah, so they have that. Let's switch a little bit and talk on the girls' side. So this weekend, Broomfield had some pretty big wins. They beat Mountain Vista earlier in the week, which Mountain Vista is a big team down in the Continental League, I believe it is. And you know, this Broomfield team is loaded. You got Sam Dean, you got Olivia Kim, you have Paige Gilpatrick, and you have her younger sister, Reese, who is one of the top. I mean, she's probably the number one player in her class in the Colorado. Um, the girl can dunk. Um, she's super athletic, and I'm expecting Mike Kroll to do a lot of things this year.
And you always got to rely on those Indiana pinstripes
That's
whenever they
right.
come out in their warm-ups. That's what I always think.
Yeah, wrong color, but yeah, absolutely. Um, what's interesting is this week, I believe Broomfield has, let me check really quick, but I think Broomfield has a couple of key games as well. But last week's game against Mountain Vista has some pretty good shooting guards in the Spellman sisters. and they were able to really keep them, kind of shut them down, and win by, I think they ended up winning by 16 points. So that was a big win for Broomfield.
Yeah, it
And then
looks like they're County, Mission South, Campbell County, and Arapahoe this week in that tournament.
mhm, yeah. And so what's going to be fun, switching gears from Broomfield, is Erie played Mead on Saturday. That was it wasn't a high scoring game. It was a very big defensive game, and Mead pulled it out. Erie had a couple of chances at the very end to get a shot off and win, but they couldn't get one off. And Mead actually wins 34 to 33 at home against a really good Erie team. Now you saw Erie earlier in the week. Talk
Mhm.
about this Erie team.
Yeah, so the Erie girls, they have a lot of youth this year, and I think head coach Tyler Cerveni is working really well with them. They played Lutheran, the game that I went to, and both teams were pretty well matched up, but you saw key things were like, a freshman, Addison Greenlee, was getting key rebounds or key free throws. And then you
Mhm.
have Juliet Slater getting a bunch of key rebounds and being really aggressive on the floor. And it just seemed like everybody was stepping up in their own little way, whether it was rebounds or steals or just making big shots. And it was more of the youth that game that really helped pull them out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's really nice to have a little bit of size so Juliet Slater and the other guards can have someone to get in there and grab rebounds and do all the different things. Um, so one of the things I did see is on Saturday, I believe Holy Family lost to Timnath up north, and I haven't done a ton of research, but have you had a chance to take a look at this new Holy Family team with Coach Mike Quintana, the new coach?
Yeah, so they graduated a lot of firepower too. Like Essence Contreras, I liked to compare her to Russ Smith from Louisville about
Mhm.
10, 15 years ago. Like she kind of played like a wild child, but she was
Yeah.
really athletic, so it worked.
Hmm.
So I think having her gone is going to be a huge adjustment. Julia Hodel having her gone is going to be a huge adjustment. But they have a
Hmm.
really good player in Gracie Ward. Alexia Oaxaca is doing really well this year. Alicia Barajas, I believe is her name. She's also having a good year. So I think they have the manpower to kind of make up for that loss. It's just going to be a bit of a learning curve without Ron Rossi, who was there forever. I mean, I went to Holy Family. He was the coach long before I went there. And
Right.
I think Mike Quintana is a really good replacement because
Mhm.
he was the boys' assistant for a long time. And then he
Mhm.
switched over and his daughter's on the team and he's coaching them. So I'll be interested to see how they do this year with that new main cast with him to see how they kind of adjust.
Well, it's interesting because I watched them a lot this summer, and Coach Quintana has the same philosophy as Coach Rossi: press, 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 and just keep the heat on. And what's interesting is you mentioned Alicia Barajas. I watched her this summer. She, I believe, is one of the most improved players in Colorado. She played for BC Denver. I believe she's got some college offers, and um, she's really grown into her own. But you mentioned Essence Contreras, Anaya Contreras, her younger sister, can shoot just as much and just as well as she is, and she's going to be a big factor as well. And like you mentioned, they got Gracie Ward. They also have Annabelle Kenny, a big 6'4" post player who's been developing the last couple of years. I'm really curious to see how well, if they can add that size to that run and gun offense that they have. That'll be really fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And then what about I believe over the weekend, I know at the Centaurus tournament, Centaurus lost in the championship to Stanley Lake. That Stanley Lake team has a really good player in Sydney Martin. She's one of the top players in the state. Um, I know Coach Mark Pacheco at Centaurus, new group, new coach.
Mm-hmm.
They've graduated a lot of kids, but they made it to the championship game in their tournament, and they didn't look too bad. They look like they've developed a little bit farther along than I thought they would be, so that's good to them.
And the Ingrid sisters. So the Lorton sisters. Ingrid's the one who's still there now. We're always really, really good and uh, really great leaders for that team. And she's averaging 13.6 points per game and 9.8 rebounds. So that's going to be a huge boost for them, having that kind of leader who can score and, attack
Mhm.
the glass like that.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit. Peak to Peak's got some big games coming up. Um, I know it's finals week, so a lot of teams are kind of easing in or easing out and maybe going into a break. Are there any big games that stick out to you other than the Peak to Peak games we talked about and maybe the Holy Family games that we talked about?
I'm going to be interested to see how Monarch and Boulder boys do against each other. Just because, Monarch has a great coach. He's always keeping
Mhm.
them in the competition, and Boulder's been improving the last few years. So I'll be
Yeah.
interested to see how they do against each other. I believe they're playing tomorrow.
Well, I was
But
going to say last week, Monarch went over to the Grand Junction Central tournament on the Western Slopes, and they went to the championship game against Fruta, and they lost. But I know from talking with the Fruta Monument coach, he was really impressed with this team. He said Coach DeBerry's done a great job in replenishing and getting them all to play together and go. So I think that's going to be a good matchup.
they're always a tournament team, it seems like. What
Yeah.
it'll be interesting is Monarch got a new girls basketball coach, and they've been really good the last few years. Graduated some size, but they have a sophomore who's really super good. Let me find her name, but it'll be interesting to see how they kind of adjust with their new coach, with Mike Blakely gone.
Yeah, so Sienna Williams is who you're looking for, and their new coach is Kincaid Bimler. Kincaid actually coached on the club scene for the last couple of years. He was previously the coach at Chatfield, and he just got the job late this summer. But they played in the Horizon tournament last week, did pretty well getting their legs under them, but they actually had some big wins this week. And so I'm excited to see how that team continues to develop. And you're right, Sienna Williams is one of the top players, not just in Boulder County, but in the state.
I have
Um,
some stats for you. She's 22.5 points per game and 19.3 rebounds per game. I mean, that's
she's
really hard to guard.
she already has an offer from CU and a couple other Big Five schools, and she is one of the top players in the 2027 class. And the thing that's crazy is she's young. She should be a freshman, but academics, whatever, she's she's a sophomore, so she's a young sophomore, but she is scrappy and I love to watch her play. And her mom, so she has a little bit of history in her family. Her mom and her aunt both played at the collegiate level, and she has a cousin that's playing at Alabama in volleyball. So there's some genes in that family, and she's definitely got a competitive streak in her. So
It's going to be fun to watch her this year. I can't wait.
oh yeah, it's gonna be great. It'll be a lot of fun, and you're gonna see a lot of college coaches at her games. When I was at her game last week, there was University of Texas, San Antonio was there. Who else was there? I think Northern Colorado was there, and CU was there. And during the fall time, during these before the things get crazy in the college scene, if college coaches aren't playing, you might see them pop in at a game at Monarch. So it'll be really worth the time to watch. Man, this has been great. Alissa, let's do this. We'll definitely do this again for sure. I'm excited for the basketball in Boulder County, as well as Broomfield County and Northern Colorado. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely.